Good evening and welcome back to Me Being Cheap. Tonight we are down in the creepy cellar under the house. This is an old rock root cellar. I've throughout the years have gone down here and have whitewashed. This is real whitewash. It's not white paint. This is made from salt and lime and water and just applied with a brush. It dries to a bright white. So anyhow, I'm down here with my worm farm, and so these videos I had previously uploaded on another channel I'm trying to combine. So this actually started out as paper shredding from my paper shredder. Needed to find a way to recycle, and so this is my tax return from 2001. It's amazing how much paper we used to use back then compared to now. The amount of statements and everything, it's like now we've moved to electronic and we're not bothered with all the paper. So obviously you can't just throw regular paper in the trash that has your financial and personal information on it. So you do need to shred it, which makes it hard to recycle. So I actually use this for bedding for my worms. So these two large blue containers, in addition to a smaller one behind me, actually used to be paper shredding. And then I would put obviously the worms in there, some red wigglers that I ordered off of the internet, and I put coffee grounds, tea bags, eggshells, bits of vegetable and stuff like that to feed the worms, and then I would keep it moist. And every once in a while I would drain the water off and use that for watering some plants. So today we're actually going to combine these two worm farms. They're fully composted, so we're going to combine them all into one. At a later date I'm actually going to sift those worms out and sift out the castings. It does need to dry out quite a bit. It is still pretty wet. So we're going to go ahead and expand and put new bedding in. And then I also have some 5-gallon buckets. And this one right here, and I actually got this idea off the internet. They actually recommend putting in a spout where you can, turn the handle and just dump out the worm juice. However, that's just extra money, and I could just, lift the bucket up and pour the liquid out. This bucket does not have holes in the bottom. These buckets do. Okay, now the red wigglers, they actually stay in the top layer of your compost. So if you make a bucket this deep, the worms are only really going to be working this part of it. So you really don't need to put it in there too deep. Now the idea was to have 2 layers. But I actually, right now, I can't get these buckets apart. So we're just going to make one layer of the paper shreddings, put a scoop of worms in there, put some items to compost. We're going to set it in this bucket to catch the liquid, and then we'll put a lid on it so that the worms don't escape. So that's part of the plan. And then, of course, we have this worm farm, and all that black stuff, that's the good stuff. That's the worm castings. Like I said, I do need to sift this, and I do see some eggshells that are not composted. Let me see what is actually showing up here. Can't really see. Let me move this over. As you can see, this is composted down. All that black stuff on the side is worm castings, and the worms are buried up in there. We're going to combine this into one bucket and start fresh. The white stuff in there, that's eggshells, and I think the next time I do this I need to crumble those up a little bit more because the worms have not yet broken those down. There is worm juice under here. I started out with holes poked in here, so it does soak through and soak onto the other container. I don't know if this is showing up or not. Let me see. Yeah, I guess you can see a little bit. See all those worms crawling around? So with this new system with the 5-gallon buckets, that juice is actually going to collect in the bottom bucket. The fun part is getting the lid off without dumping everything. Okay, well, we'll just let that sit like that for a bit. All right, this bucket here, as you can see, is not as wet as the other one, and there's worms all along the side. So I think we're going to dump this wet bucket into this one. Yep, there's quite a few in there. All right, let's lock these guys in there. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what do I do with all these worms? When I had fish in my aquaponics, I'd feed them worms. My chickens also like worms too. So I raise these for animal feed. And I also use the dirt for gardening. And the worm juice, you can dilute it down and water plants with it too. Yeah, I need to get a better system. All right. I'm gonna put this gloppy stuff in. Woo! That's heavy. There's a lot of worms in here. I don't know if you can see. A lot of worms. And this, you know what? Let me show you something. See this? This top layer, like I was telling you about, this is where the worms live. And so this part down here is still just paper. So we're going to leave this one alone. I thought it was composted, but the worms haven't done their job yet. So we've still got, dig down here, there's a ton of worms. You dig down here and it's still paper. So we'll just let this one sit. Look at this ball of worms. At the bottom, the solid bottom, and we're just going to do it like that. Bye-bye, tax return. One. With the paper scraps. Dusty. Okay, so raised primarily for chickens. I'll just give you a quick update on them. This is what they look like. See, there's a ton in there. These are just getting to the point. Look at that. These are probably going to start making pupa. Let's see, this one looks like it's already starting to. They get kind of white. So there's a bunch of these. So I have to do some maintenance on this. I'll show you kind of what they do. These beetles, they turn into pupa, and then they pupa turn into beetles, and then the beetles will mate, and they lay their eggs in the cornmeal, and so then you get tons and tons of baby worms. And so what I need to do with these little baby worms is get them started in their own buckets. See how many there are. There's so many. Put some fresh cornmeal in there. I don't know if you can see along the edge here. You can see tiny little tracks from the baby worms. Let's look in here and see what we see. Sometimes they clump up and hide. There. Little tiny one there. Little tiny one there. See if I can pick one up. See on my hand? Little tiny worm. Oop, he fell. This cornmeal here is just full of them. So anyway, I do feed these to the chickens. And the cool thing about this is that the chickens will eat all the stages. So they'll even eat them live or dead. So the dead bugs, after they get done mating, I sip them out and feed them to the worm or to the chickens as well. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful evening. I'm going to finish playing with my worms, my worm farm.